You've met Joe before?
No, I have not.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm honored to be here.
I think you will have.
Okay, good, good.
It's been great. Oh, Rhonda asked me, she's like, where'd you go? Yeah. Mine will fall apart. So, yeah. Would rather be over here.
What do you think's best, Julie?
Yeah, I went over.
I think these days, yeah, I'll bring some chairs over there. Can you push that chair over?
Like your sweater. Yeah, that's great. Very educational.
So the only thing.
Maybe have a nice lunch.
You did? Yeah.
Not like you haven't done it before.
It's quiet. We just. They're alive. Are they alive?
Yeah.
I told her it went well.
That's, I think
Just look for you, right?
yeah. All good.
So I told them that's what this now.
That's great. Thank you.
Exactly.
I definitely agree. No.
I think we're okay for now. I'm the back here. Okay.
Okay, so, yeah.
Oh, you're just be funny. Yeah. Okay. What's yours? Okay, perfect. Some of them more delegated.
So what they're gonna have.
That's
my mom.
Christy?
This is great.
Christy.
Yeah.
Hi. Matt.
Nice to meet you.
How are you? Congratulations. Thanks for coming. We'll be. So what's gonna happen is when have a few couple take care of it.
That's good. Hi, how are you? How are you? Great, thank you.
Yeah, they were very receptive of it. Thank you for the letter. I thought it was really good. I wrote a letter for Bob. John. John. Bob, I wrote a letter. Relationship. One of your letters.
Oh, boy. I just thought.
Yes. Really important to say that people water. Yeah. Anyway, it's supposed to be in the record on Saturday. Because that's the only time they're really putting those letters. You guys all your links on?
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, looks to me like we got 1 minute. We got one. Okay, you guys, everybody ready to go? All set? Okay. Okay, it's 5 o'clock, so I'll call this meeting of the Public Hospital District Number 1 Board of Commissioners monthly meeting to order. We're going to start with the budget hearing. So we have the 2024 budgets, and then we have a couple of resolutions to consider. Mr. CFO, Jason Adler, do you have anything to fill us in regarding the 2024 budget?
Yeah, so just page 4, you'll see the budget that we put together. This is the projected budget for the 2024 study that we filed with the assessor's office. If you have any questions.
How are you going to spend all that money?
Yeah, the $11,056 a share.
Okay. Any questions from the board or Jason? Okay, so first up, then we have resolution 2304. That's the adoption of the 2024 budget. You see on page 4 the numbers. Any motions for resolution 23-04? Okay, Erica. Second from John.
I'll second.
Point of discussion.
Yeah.
How much does hospital district 2 get?
1.6 to 1.7 next year.
1.6
That's $1 million.
Million, correct. And that includes both the EMS levy and the hospital district 2 levy. Both the mill rates are running about 16 cents per thousand.
Okay, so we get 10,000 for county, district 2 gets 1.6 million.
That is correct.
Okay.
Good to have that
Just
on
want
the
to get
record.
that on the record.
Have it on the record.
11,000.
$11,000.
Don't switch. That'll take care of lights for you. Okay, thank you. Bob, any other discussion? Anybody want to make frowny faces? Bob? Okay, all those in favor then of resolution 23-04, the 2024 budget, please say aye.
I
Thank you. Then we have to authorize the 2024 regular property tax levy. We just discussed the amount there. Any further discussion before we entertain a motion on 23-05?
It is a really small.
Yes.
What was it, 2 years ago that we crested 10? We get a card for that one.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve 23-05?
I'll move that one as well.
Yeah, Erica. Second. Second by Bob. Any further discussion? All those in favor of resolution 23-05, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, thank you. Anything else, Jason, before we move to the regular meeting?
No.
All right,
Thank you.
that adjourns our budget hearing. Thank you guys for that. Thank you, Jason, for preparing the budget. I'll call our regular meeting to order. And the first order of business is the approval of the agenda. Any changes or anything to the agenda? Mandy, do we need a roll call or can you see who's
I
here?
think we are good. Thank you.
All right, so any changes to the agenda? All those in favor of the approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
I guess I should have gotten a motion. All right,
I'll move to approve. the
okay,
agenda.
move to approve, second, John and Bob, good. Thank you, Julie. Let's try it again. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, good, thank you. Consent agenda, hopefully you guys have had a chance to review the minutes from the last board meeting, Jackson Foundation report and Finance Committee report now, or minutes. One of the things you may notice is the absence of QI council minutes. Okay, and this was as a result of, I mean, it was raised that there's some information in there that is not supposed to be shared with the general public. Mandy, did you want to talk about this at all briefly?
It's information that the board can have access to, but it is some of our confidential and privileged information that is protected under Washington state law. And so we want to make sure to have those robust discussions in QI Council, that we're not limiting what we record in the minutes, because that's how we demonstrate the content and the outcomes of those meetings. So instead of having those minutes in a public packet, we want to make sure we're capturing that session in our minutes. And so it'll just be a summary in my report of what we discussed.
We understand that we had a choice to make. We either had to severely restrict what was included in our minutes, which would be bad because that's how we keep track of stuff and that's how we're viewed. Or keep it the way it is and include as much information as we thought was necessary and valuable, but which couldn't be released to the general public. Now, Terry and I represent the board on that committee, so we're reviewing these regularly along with the rest of the committee. And as Mandy said, they're available to anybody who wants to look at them on the board, but we just can't put them in a public packet anymore. Thank you, John, by the way, for raising this issue for us recently. You guys have any questions about why that's no longer in there? None for me. Makes sense. Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Okay, Bob?
I'll second.
Second from Terry. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we have, since this is a public meeting, we do have time for public comments and announcements. If you have a public comment or announcement, please keep it to about 3 minutes and start with your name and where you're from. And keep in mind that the board does not respond to comments as they're made during the meeting. Is there anybody here who would like to make a public comment or announcement? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on with the meeting then. Thank you. First up then, we have a presentation of some Safe Catch Awards. Now, I've said this, I say this a lot. As a member of the QI Council, it's one of the best parts of my job is seeing all the wonderful work that KVH employees do and being able to celebrate the work they do. So this is one of the chances we get to do that. And we're really pleased to have 3 Safe Catch Award winners with us tonight. So first, let me remind you what a safe catch is. A safe catch involves at least one of the following. The catch prevented an event from reaching a patient or staff member. The catch prevented pain, delays in care, unnecessary costs, or workflow inefficiencies. The situation was high risk or had potential for greater patient harm, such as communication errors, surgical site infections, or falls. Catch led to frontline or just-in-time improvement. All right. At every QI Council meeting, we review, well, every quarter, we review safe catch nominations. And it's a tough decision to make every time because we get excellent nominations. But the winners, many of whom we have here tonight, will give you a sense of just how wonderful it is to choose these things. All right, so we have a couple of second quarter awards. The first second quarter award is a clinical award nomination for Hannah Hester, patient care technician in emergency services. There she is. Right? Here's what happened. Last night, a patient with altered mental status needed sedation for a CT scan. Hannah volunteered to go to CT with the patient and the nurse because she recognized that extra help was needed. She grabbed a bag valve mask to take with them. The patient received the sedating medications, and then the SpO2 sensor stopped working. The nurse went to retrieve a new sensor, and the patient experienced a respiratory arrest secondary to the medications. And it quickly began bagging this patient, activated a rapid response. Her proactive actions most likely helped avoid a catastrophic outcome for this patient. I also have something that Cody, who nominated her for this award, has something that I'll read on his behalf. Although Hannah was selected for a safe catch this time, Hannah is someone who has probably made hundreds more that have gone unnoticed. She is someone who cares deeply about the care that's provided in our emergency department and has consistently been actively engaged since she started with us. Her observant eye, confident skill, and deep knowledge have no doubt improved the outcomes of many patients over the years. Not only this, but she is basically our morale committee, arranging things like food for someone after having a baby, a money envelope for someone who's sick, holiday presents for local families, or just bringing in new toys to give to our pediatric patients. In my mind, very few people epitomize the spirit of this recognition more than her. Congratulations, Hannah. That's from Cody's. We also have another second quarter winner. This is the non-clinical award winner, Terry Yenter from HR. Nominated by Beth Olson, an RN and family birthing place. Terry recognized that something was not right when a company was asking for personal information regarding my employment status. He called me personally to make sure that it was legit and made sure to tell IT. Another request for information came again the next day, and he was on top of it as well as keeping me informed. Good job, Terry. Then we also have a third quarter award. Christy Ridland from Materials Management, right over there. The Director of Surgical Services. So Christy came through the OR early in the morning to restock and noticed that there was water on the floor of the OR hallway. Knowing this could be a serious issue, she took the time to alert staff. Her quick reaction to the situation brought in the engineering team well before other staff would have arrived to notice the issue. George and Trent were able to fix the problem before it became worse. While there was a slight delay on our OR schedule, we were able to safely proceed with our cases for the day. Wonderful job, Christy. Thank you, Bruce. So winners do receive a certificate, which will be given to them, as well as a charm for their badge and gift card. So, sorry. That's good. Anyway, thank you all for coming to the board meeting tonight. I know that the board is really happy to hear these stories, and I know, as I said, on the QI Council, this is something I find very edifying myself. We love celebrating our employees here, so thanks for coming. Appreciate it. So now, Terry's the other board representative on the QI Council. We're going to go out and have a couple of pictures, but we'll be right back. Congratulations.
Yep. So while they're out getting pictures, we're going to push forward with the agenda. So continuing on with the presentations, we have Patrick Gibney on the Evade Workplace Violence Prevention discussion.
Yes, and I have the pleasure of getting to introduce Patrick today. And so we do have a couple slides, though, to just do an overview of our workplace violence prevention program here at KVH. And it involves a lot of different people and leaders. So first, we'll go to our next slide. Sorry. Slideshow.
Sorry, it's really small.
Oh,
in
yes,
here.
no problem. We'll get out of your way here. The first slide is really just about our KVH policy. It's a paragraph of our policy, but we do have a very comprehensive workplace violence prevention policy. So that's on the next slide. And so if anybody needs that, wants to review that, it's always good to refresh it. We do look at that in the committee, and it's employee conduct, violence of threats of violence in the workplace. And so we'll continue on to the next slide. be very brief because you really want the star of the show, Patrick. He's the expert in this area. This is just a quick snapshot of all the different components of our workplace violence program. We have two committees, the Security Workplace Violence Committee that is focused specifically on that topic. We spend a lot of time reviewing specific incidents, looking at strategy, looking at our education selections. We do have our safety committee as well. And again, if there's a large incident, incident command and emergency preparedness committee as well. It's very important for us to collaborate with our community. We actually just had a meeting today, Ron and I, with our Phoenix security group and went over those services and plans. So it's a collaborative effort. We really appreciate our partners, law enforcement, mental health at CWU and a lot of other agencies. Reporting, so important, and that's Mandy Olson. So while I get to, I have the pleasure of introducing Patrick on the education side, which is what we're going to be talking a lot about today. There's a lot of other senior leaders. This touches everybody in the organization, from Ron to facilities, Mandy to reporting, Dee Dee, all of our clinical leaders, Michelle. It's really something that touches every senior leader, and it's all of our dedication and responsibility. So we'll go to the next slide, just a brief overview of our education programs on this topic at KVH. So Evade is our primary partner, and Patrick is more than an educator with us. He's a consultant and a partner who's been with us many years before my time here. And it's been, I always say I've never been thanked so much for requiring a mandatory training in this organization. I get emails from staff pretty often actually, and it's been a really great partnership. So in addition to Evade, which Patrick's going to tell you about, we also have several modules that are annual modules here at KVH. So we have our KVH Workplace Violence module that's specific to our policies, and then we have Violence in Healthcare module through Biz Library, which is a series of videos as well. So that's what every staff member gets in addition to the Evade training. So then we'll move to the next slide. This is really how we partnered between Evade and KVH. We've offered some really specialized advanced level training. So Patrick will talk to you a little bit more about that. And every time he's here, we do try to offer something a little more specialized, focused on a specific department in addition to the other trainings that we have. And then we'll move to the next slide. We're gonna go ahead and let Patrick talk specifically about Evade and go over some workplace trends. And so I'll let him introduce himself, but this is Patrick Gibney from Evade, and he'll tell you a little bit more about his background, and I'll look back with some of our goals for 2024. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Amanda. So Amanda said my fancy title, Director of Operations and Training. I've been in this job for about 5.5 years. And before I took this job, I spent the previous 12 years working in the most violent industry in the United States. Anybody know what that is? Matt, you can't answer because I trained you yesterday. So anybody know? What is it? Most violent industry in the United States? Healthcare. What do you think? What answers do you think I typically hear when I ask that question? Jails, corrections, all this other stuff. No, like all of you in this room, yeah, healthcare, which is super sad to say. Why I have the little time that I have with you tonight is try to raise your awareness and finish up as a director of safety, security, emergency management, a bunch of other fancy titles that don't really mean anything. And my hospital, super violent. We averaged a physical assault at least once a day, if not a couple times every shift. And when I started at the hospital, I thought all my training background was going to be excellent. It's going to be great, help me prepare to different levels. And no, I was wrong. And really, I think what makes a huge difference is training and education. So yeah, let's get into this. Hit the next slide here. This is Evade. I want to give you just a mini taste of the training that really what I'm proud of is that I get to come back about every 90 days and offer. Okay. And so look at your agenda. You have a very busy agenda. And so just kind of want to give you an overview the best that I can. The first A is awareness. Everything in life starts with our awareness. And this is our education, our training, our experience in life. And really the next letter is vigilance. You can have the best training, experience, education, but you have to do something with it. Our definition of vigilance is paying attention from second to second to second. So hopefully that you can avoid certain situations. We spend the most time in any of our programs, no matter who we're training, is teaching how to avoid situations. However, there is a myth. There's a myth in something that we do is some people believe that you can de-escalate everyone. Can you de-escalate everyone? If that was true, I wouldn't have a job, and you could put it onto an e-learning and then magically work. You learn these techniques, and yeah, it would be a really great world. And so sadly, we have to have the D innovate. We teach everyone, what does the law say? What does CMS? What does Joint Commission? What's DNV in a healthcare setting? What does actually the black and the white say? And even sadder than that is we have to teach them the physical application of self-defense. What do you do when you can't escape? And you can see that the E is escape. For me, that's one of the most important things that we teach in Evade, but you can't sometimes. And so my promise that I make in every class and I make to all of you this room is that through training, really good programs, solid leadership, is that if we learn how to manage our environment, not only as individuals, but as a team, we can avoid a lot more than we ever thought was possible. And so that's really an overview of what we do as a training company. So I'll have you hit the next slide here. And you're gonna have to fast forward a little bit, okay?
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. I got fancy little graphics in here, okay? Pull up the first bulletin point, click one more time, okay? So I just made a pretty bold claim, and I think I should be able to back it up by data and statistics that healthcare is the most violent industry in the United States. And so let's look at a little bit of the data. And I'm a little bit of a jokester. I like to make some jokes. And so I say you only have to worry about this slide if you have patient contact. If you don't have patient contact, you don't have to worry about this slide. Sadly, the next time you have patient contact, you are 5 times more likely to be a victim of a non-fatal assault than all the jobs in the United States. And sometimes people get excited about that, hit the next bulletin point. They're like, seriously? Are you talking about law enforcement, first responders, everything? Any job you could name, all the jobs in the United States combined, 5 times more likely. Now, let's talk about this 5 times, okay? Do you think that number is accurate? 5 times more likely. You think it's higher or lower?
Today's terms, I think higher.
Higher? Why is it inaccurate?
They don't report.
Some
Underreported.
people just don't.
Underreported. And we hear all of this stuff, right? I think some of you in the room have heard it. It's part of the job. If it's a patient attacking us, there's different things, there's different rules or regulations. If a visitor, it's different, other things. And so where does this number come from? It's the last major study, 2018 Bureau of Labor Statistics, the last time they released it. And here's what happens is when they go into each state, Washington, L&I, they go into OSHA for each state, what gets reported up to the state level and even in the local level, what gets reported to all of you is it's inaccurate. And so for me, this is already too high. This is too high 5 times. And let's come to an agreement. What is a non-fatal assault? Because next time you have patient contact, you're 5 times more likely to be a victim of a non-fatal assault. So what's a non-fatal assault? Everything short of death. So what type of attacks do we see? Wrist grabs, hair pulls, bites, chokes, spit, being pushed, one punch. Most jobs never have to worry about this kind of stuff. They don't even have to think about it. It's so rare, but yet it's so common here in healthcare. And Britt, hit the clicker one more time, please. When we dial down the data even more, nurses are most at risk. Why are nurses most at risk?
They have most contact with patients.
Frequency and contact. That's why it's a very hard argument, and I'll even say a legal argument, not to train a nurse in this type of training. And we'll talk a little bit about what the Washington state law says, the federal standard. But it's a very hard argument that based on the data statistics, even if we had to force nurses to take this type of training, it's the right thing for them to do because the data is just off the charts. Frankly, we've broken the charts as a country related to violence inside of healthcare. I'll have you hit the next slide, please. I want to give you a raise your awareness here about the different levels that we offer in the training that you are providing your staff. Level 1 is definitely the most important. Who can take this training? Anyone. And what I say is all the way from the C-suite down to a volunteer could learn and benefit from this. This is really how we build a human-to-human connection, how we de-escalate, some basic safety strategies, and there's a lot of important stuff to this. We've been delivering a 4-hour class for a few years here now. This can be an 8-hour class. This can be a 12 to 16-hour class. There's a lot of material here. I can tell you a lot of violent hospitals, this is a full day training or maybe even a day and a half. And so there's a lot to it. And so I'm trying to give you a taste in 15 minutes of it, right? but there's a lot of good information. Go ahead and the next slide. Level 2, the basics of self-defense. No matter who we train, we teach them escape, 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 get out of there. But when you look at these things that happen, not only at your hospital, but nationwide, a lot of the times a staff member can escape. And so what do? For me, this is really sad. Out of all the first responders that I train, that I have to come in healthcare and we have to teach them this and we have to train them this. But there's a lot to this. So about every other few times that I come out, you're offering a level 2. And I'll say this about your organization is that I'm very proud that you are supporting that anyone, regardless of their job title, can come to this. That is not normal in healthcare. A lot of healthcare, they just say, hey, this certain group, your high risk emergency room, maybe security, on-site security, law enforcement, lock psych units, you're the only ones that come to this. But the data shows anyone and everyone, no matter what your job title, and we'll look at specific Washington data, anyone could be exposed to violence. So level 1, level 2, we've covered, hit the slide. We'll do level 3. We did this today. We're going to do this tomorrow as well. This is for when the person, the patient in particular, is completely out of control. Really the best way to think about this and summarize this is time for restraints and seclusion. We teach to what CMS says, what your state laws say about when a patient becomes fully combative. And ultimately, our responsibility is to not only keep the patient safe, which I firmly believe in, but we also have to keep each other safe. And so we try to work as a team to de-escalate. Since you can't de-escalate everyone, we have to start with light intervention and work all the way up. So can you hit the next slide, please? I've kind of alluded to this, that really this is an epidemic nationwide. My main job, I travel the United States almost every other week at this point because of where we're at as a country. And my main job is to come into an agency and make instructors. And sometimes they're certified for 3 years. I never see them again. I never get to meet them. And so again, one thing that I'm proud of is you all have made a commitment to your staff through our partnership to come out every 90 days. I love frontline training. I love meeting and training people on the front lines. And so really the way this started is you can see that at the state levels, these are the states that have very specific workplace violence training laws for healthcare. California started this trend in 2016. That's where I was born, raised, spent a lot of my adult life as well. To today, they have the most stringent workplace violence training law in the United States. There is a federal bill sitting inside of the Senate in the last 3 administrations. It gets passed in the House. It goes to the Senate. They're debating it in there and it keeps getting pushed year after year. And the reason why I'm sharing this here, friends, is because eventually one day it will pass and it will dramatically change the responsibility at the federal level of workplace violence, what is required. So 2016, states started to follow suit of California. And in 1999 into 2000, Washington State came up with a law for workplace violence training because it was already an issue back in 2000. And it really only mandated this type of training to emergency rooms or high risk. And guess what? Since 2000, till they had to make a new law in 2019, even emergency room staff wasn't getting trained in adequate training. So they made a new law that applied to everyone in the hospital because the data and statistics is everyone is at risk. So the law kicked in January 1, 2020. My calendar for the next year from January 2020, all I was going to be doing was going around the state of Washington training healthcare agencies because they were concerned about meeting compliance with the law. What happened in March 2020? And so a lot of training was frozen. We can't train, we can't meet in person, we can't do anything else. And what I've said to many agencies since the pandemic started is, how do you social distance as a first responder? How do you social distance as a first responder? When we're going to deal with a combative person in your emergency room or anywhere in the hospital, how do you social distance? Well, you can't social distance, Patrick. Well, why aren't we training then? The data and statistics are off the chart. Again, another thing that I'm proud of this organization is that you're one of the only agencies in the United States, not just Washington, in the United States that was still having us come out to deliver this training. So you all got it. You weren't doing it just because of the law. You were doing it because it was the right thing to do for your folks. And that's a pretty powerful statement coming from me, because I have a pretty good picture and perspective of how we deal with workplace violence in the country, especially healthcare first responders. If you want to know more about the law, we have a full crosswalk for it. But yeah, you're doing a pretty good job, not only in the state of Washington, but what the rest of the country is doing. So to get more specific for Washington, I want to end on this slide. If you go to the last slide. This is some the data and statistics. I see a lot of financial figures inside of your paper packet that you have to. A lot of people, they want to know data like this. This is 2021. What did it cost the state of Washington? This is a financial figure. Some people are pretty shocked by this. When I looked at this, I knew healthcare, and this specific by job titles. What's the number one cost to the state of Washington? A registered nurse getting assaulted, and it was over $4 million, and it was only 153 incidents. Do you think this number is accurate? Not even close. Number two, we got people that work in lock psych facilities, and number three actually surprised me. Number three to your agency is your home health hospice workers, or people that go into people's homes. And I got to train them again this afternoon. And I want everyone in this room to think about this. And I pick on my ER friends, I pick on my lock psych unit, I pick on security and law enforcement friends, and I ask them this: who wants to go in one person's home today by yourself, let alone multiple people's homes all day long by yourself? So we're going to talk about some goals and some things in this next part of the presentation, but that is what some of your workers are doing. They are going to multiple people's homes by themselves. And I have some real leaders here in the room. And one thing I want you to think, and one challenge I want to show out here, is how do we know that Patrick goes into one home and he made it out of that home? How do we know that I went into the second home and I made it out of that home? And sadly, sometimes, you know what it takes is my family starts calling all of you, or starts calling law enforcement that I didn't show up for dinner. What about the staff that it's going to be on call tonight? Do we all know and have visibility that where they went and when they went into that home and when they left that home? So what's not reflected here, friends, is the emotional toll of workplace violence. These are just numbers. There's an emotional toll. I've met many of your coworkers / employees on a regular basis, every single week. Terrible verbal threats of harm are being said to them. It's one of the only jobs that I know of that the people we serve, and I'm going to be very particular with my words, patients, can get away with saying very threatening things to staff members. And that is a heavy, heavy toll on them. So overall, I really appreciate being partners with you. You're definitely beyond where a lot of your healthcare partners are in the state of Washington, because even though it's been an intense law since January 1, 2020, what do a lot of healthcare folks do to meet compliance and check the box? They give an e-learning, even though the law says it's supposed to be in person. And really, that's about it. So this is definitely a serious topic. Any feedback that you have from your training yesterday?
Yeah, I attended the level 1 training yesterday morning. I learned an awful lot. I had a great mix of emotions, because on the one hand, you're sort of thinking it's good that they're getting this way to respond, but on the other hand, the fact that they have to have this training is sort of disconcerting for those of us who aren't directly on the ground in healthcare. So, yeah, I think it was, you did a good job, and I learned a lot about sort of big picture things like trends and what's going on from nationwide, what the common threats are, and then ways to sort of try to de-escalate and mitigate when necessary. I find it really valuable for understanding what our workers on the ground need to know and why they need to know it, I guess. So I found that really valuable.
Good. Thank you for that.
I Can I say something?
Absolutely.
I wasn't able to attend that, but I'm thinking of what you're saying about how you're imagining, these, trying to put yourself in the shoes of people who need this on a daily basis. But then I imagine as somebody who does need this on a daily basis, that they're probably sitting there thinking, well, I can think of this experience, that they have firsthand experience with any number of situations where this would have been helpful and takes it out of nebulous aspect and into something very tangible. So, yes, thank you for attending.
I have 13 pages of notes, which I have scanned and will share with the rest of the
Thank you.
board.
Yeah, I did see, I give you a gold star for one of the most intense note takers I've ever seen, so.
I'd like to be,
Yeah,
anyway, yeah, I thought it was really, and it was good to talk to other people who were attending there. It is true, you sort of hear some stories about the things that they've had to deal with.
So your
Eye-opening.
training tomorrow morning is gonna be another level 1 training
yes, sir.
at 8 o'clock.
8 to 12.
Yeah, well, you'll have to put up with me, because
Hey, good, it's my honor.
yeah, 'cause I've been registered for that training. So consequently, I'll be the commissioner.
Good deal.
I'll be there, okay?
When you just, the definition of workplace violence, so goes, I mean, how, what, is it someone just kind of feels threatened or someone actually has to threaten?
I'll tell you what the definition
Good.
An act of aggression, verbal assault, physical assault, or threatening behavior that occurs in the workplace environment and causes physical or emotional harm to guests, patients, staff, or visitors.
Good.
Did I get that okay?
Yeah, excellent. Double gold, triple gold star. Okay, so
And that can be, a staff member and patient or staff member on staff member.
well, we break that down because to be federally compliant, I have to teach you the 4 categories according to OSHA who commits violence in the workplace. The Washington state law didn't require this, but California, many other states, and soon to be the federal law, is that part of your documentation and the requirements after you have a workplace violence incident. And I want to sum this up because right now the minimum federal definition is you just heard it. And some people have this long, complicated incident. It's any incident that causes physical or, more importantly, emotional harm. You are expected to respond to that, okay? And then you're going to have to quantify, was it type 1, type 2, type 3, or type 4? And so as a country, we do an okay job when someone physically gets assaulted. And what I say by okay job is I go into healthcare all across the United States. Every single class, I meet one, if not multiple people in the class where someone is coming to physically attack them. They are physically getting assaulted. And all the healthcare worker did was push this person, run out of the room. And guess what do you think happened to that healthcare worker when they minorly defended themselves? What do you think the common response is when all I do is push someone that's violently attacking me?
Response from the attacker?
The organization. What do you think the organization's response is against the healthcare worker that a patient is attacking them? All they do is push and run out of the room.
I would imagine it's a jaw-dropping response of,
Suspension, termination.
You're
So-
not implying that's our.
No.
Thank you.
No, but this is
Yeah.
common. And many of your current employees, when we bring up this example, and I think Matt can attest to this, people are saying, yep, I've seen that. I've been a part of that. That's happened to me. That's my fear. And that's physical responses. So the second part of OSHA's definition is emotional harm. When someone is threatening to kill you at work, I'm going to get you, your friends, your family, your coworkers, and sometimes they go report that stuff all the way up. What happens in those situations? To me, it's just as important as the emotional harm as the physical harm. And it's not up to really anyone else to determine, was that really a physical assault or an emotional? And that's what we see happen in all industries. Oh, that didn't count as an emotional harm to you, so we're not going to record that as workplace violence. The minimum definition for me is pretty easy: physical or emotional harm to guests, patients, staff, visitors. Great question. The definition of workplace violence.
I have a question.
Did you ever happen to see our quality dashboard that we have a thing that is
I
called
did.
workplace violence events?
I did.
If you have, what did you think about that piece in our dashboard?
Yeah, it's awesome that you have it. It really is.
Page 18.
Yep, let's see, page 18, I'll fast forward past that. I'm a straight shooter. I'm honest, the truth always comes out, okay? Now I'm looking at these number of incidents that are here totals. So I'm not that smart at math, help me figure this out. September 2022, 6 incidents. Am I reading this correctly, that there was only 6 incidents here in the entire month
Of workplace violence
of physical and emotional harm?
that was reported.
Okay, let's go to October. We only had 3 incidents in the entire month of October. Is that correct?
Reported.
Okay,
And sometimes the employee reports it, and they don't say it's workplace violence, or they say it's not the OSHA-defined workplace violence. And as a committee, we may say, I'm sorry, that's workplace violence.
yeah, good. So this is a two-way street. And this is what I think I like about our partnership is that I'm going to take this piece of data back to my next training and I'm going to say to all the coworkers, is that humanly possible that we only had 3 incidents of workplace violence in the month of October? So I'll look over here to my friends, okay, over in the corner. Is that possible? And usually they'll go, what? We had 3 last night. Well, did you report it? No, we don't have time for that, Patrick. You don't get it. We're saving lives. Okay.
The other thing about this workplace violence event is it's either patient to staff or staff to staff. It's not separated at all because both of those workplace violences are reported on this
The
part of-
dashboard.
on this dashboard together. So consequently, if there's 3, we're not really saying whether one was staff to staff and the other 2 were patients or whatever they were. But it isn't, I think, a good thing to see how the workplace violence is going on since we're a board here and we oversee the governance of this wonderful hospital district. If the workplace violence event started increasing, we definitely would want to do some increased governance over it to try to reduce and protect everybody, every human being that might be involved in that workplace violence.
Yeah.
If I'm hearing you correctly, Patrick, the idea is that one of the things we may want to think about is to encourage more reporting when there are such events. Is that one of the messages?
And I think we're going to talk about this. We can bring up the other presentation here is it's very easy and sometimes human nature just to blame other people, right? And so I have to be an advocate for both sides in this position, leadership and then the frontline staff, okay? And so I think one of my challenges, and this is a goal here on these slides, is visibility of reporting. Is we should make this data or any data that you have, and I know you have awesome data, it should be beyond transparent all the way down to the frontline staff to be like, hey, we supposedly only got 12 Verge reports last month. Is that possible, friends? You only had 12 incidents of physical or emotional harm incidents. And so that's some accountability back on the frontline staff to go, no, well, no, that's not possible. And so I'll say this in a different way. To be successful with Evade, I know you're successful with Evade is if your workplace violence incidents increase. Now, did they actually increase? No, we're getting better data and staff is going to report it. They're seeing a better response. And so that we have the data to really figure out what's going on. Are these truly physical assaults? Is it emotional? And I think that's why I actually like being able the OSHA categories, because you can actually tell really where is it coming from. Is it strangers? So type 1 is strangers, people that have no legitimate reason for being here. Type 2, patients, clients, guests, the people you serve. Type 3 is coworker on coworker. And type 4 is they have a domestic tie to the workplace in some way, shape, or perform. I can tell you the data nationwide shows this. 84% of all attacks last year against healthcare workers were type 2 patients against employees. And so, data is super important. You can't really make a lot of changes or look at your effectiveness without doing data.
I've got a question. Mandy, how long does it take, ballpark figure, if somebody's gonna, or if you've made a report, what your experience is, or how long does it take if I want to make a report? How much time do I need to dedicate to getting that report submitted?
One of the things we did 10 years ago when we changed incident reporting systems was to make, I think there's only 4 required fields on the front screen so that it's the minimal amount. It just depends on what level of detail you're going to put in there. But I believe with the security workplace violence events, there's 2 screens that they go through. That second one is kind of categorizing the workplace violence or the behavior and saying whether I think as a reporter it's workplace violence or not, and adding some details related to it. But again, there's very little that's required so that you can put it in quickly and not have it, take an hour. But I would be curious what staff think about how long it takes.
So on this workplace violence event on the dashboard, it's important to keep the physical and the social, emotional things together on that, or should we start having them separated?
Really, you could do a total. You could do a total, but I think if you're able to quantify and break down the data even more, is that gives you more data to work with, right? And if you and this all ties back to training, and especially de-escalation training. The Washington state law is pretty clear that every 3 years, you're supposed to do an assessment that looks at all of your data, okay? And when you look at that data, how are you going to change your workplace violence training? And so one way to look at this is, I'll use the California law, because they say you have to do that assessment every year, and they expect you to your refresher training is supposed to be reflective of all the data incidents that happened last year. So here's one way to look at it that inspectors will do. Joint Commission has stepped up their requirements, okay? I think you all use D&V, is that correct? Okay, but here's what Joint Commission is doing when they come in. Show me your report from last year. Tell me what your top 5 verbal threats were and your top 5 physical assaults. Now, after you show me that data, show me how you changed your refresher training to your staff to respond to your top 5 verbal threats and your top 5 physical incidents. And so you need to quantify that data to change your training to make a difference, right?
I imagine that data is quantified and classified on your end of things, but for us, for our consumption here at board meeting, it's
Each of the
all
incidents is reviewed by the safety committee. Yes.
Yeah, that's just channel Mandy here. Yeah, if we want to see the more specific data, I think they'd be happy to share it with us.
So do you have any data that shows if emotional workplace violence starts increasing, then you see increased physical violence, or are they not associated with one another?
I think that's too generalized to say. We'd have to look at a specific facility with that. We know that when people start out verbal, and especially I want to be very specific this, when someone is making a verbal assault, they are threatening to do bodily harm. And that data is pretty critical, is that if we don't have the ability to de-escalate or control that situation, does that verbal assault turn into physical? Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Well, and that's one of the values of the de-escalation training.
one more question.
Sorry, Mandy, did you have something to add to this? I thought you were ready to say something.
Just that those risk assessments that come through, so security, workplace violence team reviews every incident, they're categorized. That data is actually then displayed by department, the type of violence. That data, after the security committee reviews it, is reported up to the safety committee, and they also perform an annual risk assessment that I think it was presented here last year as well. And then the summary of that data, it's teased out a little bit more, not to the extent of what type of assaults, that's like on a 6 months or annual basis, but the summary of what departments, whether it was verbal, I think that's.
And trended against the previous year.
Yeah, and that's provided to the Safe Staffing Committee every month too, so that's available for anyone to access that information. It's published each month.
All right, thank you, Mandy. Erica?
Yes, is there a time limit for, say, an event happens, an employee has time to process the event and comes to the realization that, this is more substantial than I initially gave it credit for, is there a limit?
Anytime.
Okay.
And in fact, if the person logs in, they put their incident report in, they can go back and look at and edit any incidents they've entered previously. That was one of the reasons we chose the system we have, is people could edit and view things they previously reported.
Right.
Harry, you're still in the ER, so could we get, I'm kind of moving on, but could we get your perspective, like how often?
I was physically assaulted twice in the last year. I was punched once and I was kicked once. And I'm verbally assaulted at least every rotation.
Every day?
Not every day, but
Probably someone is.
Mm-hmm.
And do those get reported?
I rarely report the verbal. I don't, cause I'm just, the more I listen, like that does feel like it's, you kind of trick yourself, like they're mental health patients and you don't, it's tricky, so I definitely report all physical assaults, but I would not say that I'm all that great at reporting verbal.
So to that emotional toll, Patrick, what are the resources out there? We use things like EPA when there's a major event or employees can access EPA, but tools and way to deal with that sort of ongoing emotional toll. Are there good resources out there?
There are, I think, the thing that really makes a difference, and it shouldn't be forced, but if it is debriefing after the incident. And it's very hard with how busy you all are. Now, there's a difference between debriefing and the root cause analysis, right? And so really critical. And you have a debriefing expert sitting here in the room, okay? I'm happy. We have a short mini debriefing. When you learn how to debrief correctly, it can take less than 5 minutes, but it takes time, commitment, and training. And I'll use this first responder analogy. If we won't debrief at work, do people debrief when they go home? Yes, they do. And sometimes it's not an appropriate way of debriefing. It's not an effective way of debriefing, right? And so really here's our simple 4-step debriefing process, okay? Number 1, is everyone okay? We're gonna go around the room. Is everyone okay? Does anyone hurt? Anyone physically injured? We take care of our own first so we can serve others, okay? So is anyone hurt? Nope. Okay, good. Someone's taking notes. They're typing this out, okay? If we all were in an incident right now, as a good debriefer, here's what I do. You have no more than 2 sentences to tell me what happened in your perspective. Because guess what? I was there first. You came in 30 seconds later. Another person came in 2 minutes later. So we all have our different perspective of what happened, right? So you get 2 sentences to sum up from your perspective what happened. Because yes, we are busy. 3rd step, probably the most important, okay? What went well? What went well? Okay, what did we do well in this incident? Because sometimes debriefing or root cause analysis, it gets into being the blame game. And we don't want to do that in a debrief. What went well? You get 2 sentences to say what we did before, during the incident that went well. We go around, we're recording it. And the last step is, what are we going to do, to either prevent this in the future, or what are we going to do, especially if this is a patient, what are we going to do to support this patient moving forward? Like, what is our plan of action? What is our care plan moving forward? And you got about 2 sentences. And we just find if you can do a debrief like that. And here's the challenge, is a rock and roll emergency room sometimes is like, it is going to take leadership to be able to say, hey, I have to pull so-and-so off. We need to get someone else. We may have to pull a nurse, a float nurse from med surg so that I can figure out what's going on with this ER team. And the challenge with that is it's a real challenge in the beginning. But if we don't debrief with that staff and all that stress and those emotions are sitting on them, what are they going to do for the rest of their shift? They're going to go from room to next emergency emergency to next emergency to next emergency. And sometimes what we see happens is 2 hours later, that stress that was built up that they didn't get to debrief is a visitor or a patient says something minor, and that kind of sets them off because they haven't been able to debrief that. Or maybe it's 2 to 3 days, a week later, because we haven't discussed that. And so I'm big and I challenge especially my ER friends over here. When I say, hey, you should debrief after every incident, they're like, we'd be debriefing all day. Good. The California law in 2016 mandated that you are supposed to debrief within 1 hour. And I can't tell you the amount of pushback that staff fought us on for that. But guess what? They ended up loving it. Because we got our emotions out, we got our feelings out, and we got good at it. You can do a proper debrief in 5 to 3 minutes when you get good at it.
Patrick, one thing that we've talked about just recently within leadership team is that with the EAP, we have a resource, we have a great debrief for some of those incidents, but when people are struggling, sometimes the hardest thing is to go to our website and find the number and make the call, to do that reaching out. So we've been talking about bringing the EAP on site, and if nobody uses them, but at least they're available. We make it as easy as possible. We have our finance advisors come regularly on a regular basis. So for our employees' mental health, let's have them come on site. Have you seen anything in terms of using the EAP that you'd recommend with us?
I'll give you a specific example. When I started at the hospital, they would always bring in the counselors when we had a fetal demise or we lost a kid in labor and delivery. Always mandatory. We had our role in it, chain of custody, other things that would happen. And I was like, hey, this is actually pretty awesome. And I asked the director of labor and delivery, I go, man, you do this every time? And they go, yeah, we don't want a nurse or anyone, including all of you, to get used to this. But guess what happened when I saw a first kid pass away in the emergency room? You think they debriefed then? Not at work. They'd go to a restaurant, to a bar, somewhere else. And I was like, hey, we're not bringing the counselors in for this. We debrief all the time in labor and delivery. They're like, Patrick, this is ER, bro.
Have you ever seen data reported a little bit weird when a person has an accident and they said that they had workplace violence, but it was really self-violence. It wasn't a human being to another human being. Have any of the places that you've seen reported that in their workplace violence, but it really wasn't a human being against another human being?
You're talking about like a dog? Like a dog bites you?
Like self-harm.
Oh,
Self-harm.
Yeah, self-harm, but
Yeah.
yeah, your home health hospice folks that I talked to this afternoon, they've been bitten by animals. Is that workplace violence? Yes. Yeah, because again, I asked you this question earlier, who wants to go into sometimes complete strangers when they're meeting this patient for the first time? Do they have dogs in the home? Do they have weapons in the home? Do they have other things going on? So that's the best way that I can answer your question is not necessarily self-harm. As a first responder, it's only a matter of time before you see and deal with suicide or other things like that. And that's a heavy toll. And again, the real way to deal with that is debriefing. We have to debrief.
Okay, so you really said workplace violence doesn't have to have two human beings associated with it, because you could be bit by a dog or something else that can happen. Okay, all right, well, thank you for answering that.
Can I just offer one thing too? So we kicked off Team Steps training, and one component of Team Steps training is debriefing. And so that's being rolled out to all folks. That is really process improvement focused, and you can change that debrief to be very specific to all kinds of events. We do it a lot after even improvement activities or meetings to say what went well, what could we do differently. But we do have specific debriefing we do after falls. We call it a post-fall huddle, but there's been a proposal that we have a very similar thing for any workplace violence events, a specific type of debrief for those events. Outside of EAP, we're talking about that emotional support for employees as well.
Yeah, man, and then we'll turn it back to Patrick to continue. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, so I'm going to mention, I think this is pretty much the end of our presentation, but about our goals together. And, we've also, in addition to the goals, definitely increasing participation for all staff. We're getting all new hires in, we're pre-scheduling them now, but we do have a lot of catch up for our employees, and we're going to be working on that. Advanced level training, like the home health training today. Patrick's been doing specialized training, and there might be some repeat folks going in today, I think there was a question, someone said, well, I already went through it. Do I have to go again? And we said, yes, this is an ongoing conversation. It's a specialized part of training that there's new cases, new examples to go through. That's what he's doing, team-specific training. And then, Ron has done a great job when we do facilities planning and assessment to incorporate this work into the rooms. And I know I've learned a lot from Patrick about your situational awareness and geography, and not just in work, although we're talking about workplace violence, but your personal life, and you've shared stories in restaurants and things like that. And then we are looking at, there's some great technology out there. Several of us went to the AHA conference, the American Hospital Association Leadership Conference in Seattle this year, and this was a huge topic. So everything Patrick's saying is really in line with what's being talked about at the national level, I think, in the industry and healthcare. Dee Dee and I were able to participate in a session, and there's lots of kind of tracking technology and things out there that we're looking at. But the new system that our home health team is working on very hard right now, the home care home base, I believe is what it's called. There's supposed to be some technology improvements in there as well. So there's lots of work to do. This is a topic that we're just gonna keep having conversations about. So Patrick, we really appreciate you coming and all your expertise. So thank you. Guys.
Any last questions?
Thank you.
Good, I'll leave. I like to talk. You have tons of important topics to talk about, so I appreciate your time. On behalf of your frontline first responders, I appreciate the commitment that you offer. Yeah, you're doing a great job. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Hope to see you in class one day.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. As we've talked about, I think, with regard to quality and also the, with HR and stuff that Amanda's talking about, we are going to have sort of regular conversations about this moving forward. Seems like there's a great interest. Okay, next up then we're starting our reports and dashboards. And before Mandy goes, just to call your attention to her report. This is what the report's going to be like on what we did at QI Council. So there are going to be a list of topics which we can drill down into, but this will allow you guys to sort of understand what we did. But then Mandy can fill it in if you need to, being mindful of confidential information.
And if there are any specific cases that the board ever wants to discuss, we absolutely can. We just should do that in executive session.
Yes. All right, go ahead, Mandy.
So my report starts on page 13, and as Matt said, there at the bottom, you can see the topics we covered in QI Council. I do want to give you an update on where our flu vaccination status is. So we have 820 employees in our system right now. 608 of them are compliant, meaning they've provided us documentation that they got the flu vaccine or that they are declining the flu vaccine. So that's only percent. They're 74%. So we've got November 1st, we're supposed to have documentation on everyone. So we need to see either they're declining or they're immunized by November 1st. Of those people, though, that have gotten, are compliant, have given us documentation, 93% of those folks are vaccinated. So that's great. That's more in line with our previous numbers we used to see last year. I think we were only at 79%. So I'm excited about how many folks are getting vaccinated this year. And I take any questions about that.
Yeah, any questions about her report?
Paul said kudos to the board. You're 100% compliant.
Yay. All right.
So if they don't get vaccinated, they have to wear a mask.
Yep.
How is that enforced? Is it on our system or?
No, there are, the ImmuWare system sends notifications to supervisors and to the employee that we don't have your documentation. And so that supervisor needs to monitor whether or not they're masking when they're at work. Julie also is aware and lets people know that she's aware, and other leaders, senior leaders in the organization know too.
Any questions about Mandy's report before we sort of look at the dashboard? Okay, Anything you want to call our attention to on the dashboard, maybe? Hopefully we've had a chance to review it, but anything that's particularly unusual or a trend that you'd like to call our attention?
I just put out that QI Council asked for nursing to come back to us to speak about the pain medication reassessment. They had made changes to the measurement and just want to hear more about the rationale for that and kind of what improvements are being made to that measure.
That's on page 17.
Yeah, and we're talking a lot about what the dashboard will look like going forward with this new COPI, the larger scale COPI strategic plans, and then how that information would come to the board each month. I think it will still look like a monthly dashboard for you from quality. And then over time, you'll have more specific data on different projects or COPI plans, or on topics like stroke, STEMI, sepsis, infection control, surgical areas. So we're just know we're really working on that, and that would be coming to you in December or after if there were any changes to the dashboards that were brought to you.
Yeah, the QI Council reviews the dashboard every year and gets feedback from people about what should be included, what should be taken off, what should be added. So yeah, that's done every year. Any questions about the dashboard?
One question, considering Patrick's statement that he knows that the training is working when the workplace violence reports go up, would we consider changing? So we're to suggest this, would we consider changing the direction of that arrow and also setting a goal?
I'll tell you that, so employee reports is another one that's like that, where you're like, why would you ever say you want an increased number of reports? And it's because we want reporting, but we want reporting where we've anticipated or prevented harm, not where harm has actually happened. So I think this one, I wouldn't say you would change the arrow up. You may look at it differently by saying, you know, we want to decrease injury, right, or harm, but we want to increase reporting. So
if it's labeled
you might look at
reports,
it
we might
differently.
put the arrow the other way, but of course we want the events themselves to decrease.
And this is events, but it's workplace violence events. So where they said it was workplace violence. And so I don't know how you'd capture it quite the same way as you do like with medication error, where you say, oh, that was a near miss. We caught it before, but we could anticipate that something might have happened. I don't know how well you might be able to capture that with workplace
Possibly
violence.
just keep in mind his words and just kind of.
Yeah,
do it in that context.
I think it's a great thing for the security team to work on, right? Like, what would they recommend that gets reported?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely don't want more events, but we want to encourage.
And I think it
Percentage
is
of
something to think about when you're looking at the data. I do know historically, compared to other organizations, we have higher levels of reporting than others. When you look at surgical site infections or falls, or even just incident reporting overall. So I think we do a fairly good job of reporting. However, I'm sure that I know of times when staff have said, no, I'm not going to report.
But we also know from the survey of patient safety that we need to make more visible our response reporting, and that's part of the goals that Nan has outlined for this specifically, but that's true across the board with the occurrence reporting. A lot is going on. We need to somehow make that visible to the employees so they know that they're being heard and we're actually working with that data.
So that it's a worthwhile effort to report and it doesn't.
Right,
Yeah.
we heard you. We're paying attention.
So regardless of workplace violence, that's one of the goals next year. That's as far as responding to the survey of patient safety culture. So you may see that go up regardless.
Amanda, you may be able to respond on this more, but another thing we really want to educate staff on is that sometimes when people report anonymously, we hear, oh, well, nobody ever did anything, nobody followed up. It's really hard with anonymous reports. We do our investigation, but we have nobody to follow up with. And so that's a challenge. And we are going to try to be innovative on ways of, looking at things by department and trying to be more visible with the data, in other ways. But it is a challenge on individual support, as Patrick said, with emotional support and things to be able to offer that. And we allow anonymous report, so, yeah.
When you issue like a code to a report, you put in a report, you get the code, this is the identifier for this report, and then publicly publish for that code what the result was. So somebody could go in and view that, and they know their code because they got it when they reported it, but nobody knows. And that, you understand what I'm kind of saying?
Anonymized.
Yeah.
So we have to, again, be careful with, the incident reporting system is considered protected quality improvement work. And so we lose the protection depending on if we decide to lose that privilege by publishing it, going outside of our processes. So you want to be careful about what you're sharing, like incident numbers or things like that out in the world.
It's like a
So-
disposable code. It wouldn't be connected to anything else other than the person that submitted it could look,
Our
you can say, we reviewed it and we
Our
took this
current
action.
system doesn't allow that, but we're talking with them right now, and so that may be an option in the future.
But also, if I'm hearing you correctly, depending on how much information you gave in the public report, it may have an impact on confidentiality.
So that's where we try, even if it's anonymous, to talk about improvements that we've made in a way that doesn't, identify a particular incident to other than to people that.
Other questions?
Aggregate data also comes.
Any other questions about the dashboard? Anything else from Andy? Thank you very much, Andy.
I was answering one other thing.
Yeah, go.
You should be receiving the QAPI plan drafts after November 11th. You'll be receiving, we're
Was
still
you Matt, or you the board?
the board.
Okay.
Will get the opportunity in the month of November to review the drafts and give feedback.
Because November is when we will review it in QI Council.
December will review those final drafts.
Okay.
And then,
We approve in January.
yes, at the January board meeting.
So there'll be a chance for everybody to give feedback on it.
Mid-November till before your December meeting.
Exactly.
Feedback we would give you, be able to talk about in the
Yeah.
December meeting.
Yep, that's
So
it.
that will come to you in email and
Okay.
after November 10th, so November 11th, really.
Okay, so keep your eyes open for that.
Yep.
Anything else, Mandy? All right, thank you very much. Before Julie talks, I just should tell everybody that she has to leave a little early today to talk to a local group, the League of Women Voters. I think you're going to talk about model airplanes or something.
That's it. Yeah.
No, rural healthcare, so it's pretty important. So she'll be leaving a little early. But Julie, go ahead.
My report is on page 19. I would, again, I just call out that these copies are affording us the opportunity to really design some of our care from the ground up, including our women's health focused on GYN care and our design of patient care in the clinic. So we will be reaching out and trying to pull together some focus groups. This will be comprised of people like Stacy Olea and Michelle, who will be simply sitting down and talking to people about what is the ideal state, what are you looking for in practices. So really looking forward to that. Also, as part of next year's initiative, we'll be re-engaging with a patient and family advisory committee, but this focus group opportunity will be separate from that. I'm anxious to hear about the meeting with the 13th legislative delegation because I bailed on that. I was ill that day and John and a number of people, I think Stacy, Dee Dee, and Rhonda Holden was able to step in and help with that presentation. But we had Senator Warnick, I believe, and Representative Ybarra, who were here for that, so.
Yeah, any
Oh,
reports?
you want it now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'd probably have to start with Michelle, since she kind of stepped into your shoes and led the discussion. From my perspective, they were very attentive, they were very interested, they already seemed pretty aligned with our concerns and understand our concerns. I think the reality is they're not in session, so it was a good touch base with them, refresh their thoughts of things we're concerned about, but I do think we have to stay on this and revisit them when they're in session and attached to specific bills if we're looking for changes and whatnot. So, but I'd welcome anyone, anyone's thoughts, or Michelle, if she's there, anybody who wants to speak about their impression of the discussion.
I would agree with you, John, and I did put a brief summary in my board report. I thought it was a very productive meeting. We have a couple of action items that we're going to take out of that as far as following up with Representative Ybarra and possible funding opportunities and partnerships with CWU. And it was a great conversation. Establishing those relationships is most important. And I think it was very successful.
Yeah, I'd like to just add on, it was really nice to have both Stacy Botten from Family Birthplace and Cody Staub from the Emergency Department to really share the stories of what's happening in both of those departments. And there was a lot of talk on the workforce development, as Michelle mentioned. We even managed to get workplace violence talked about.
Yeah, but
So
the stories
it was a
did
wonderful hour.
hit, I think, pretty good.
Yep.
Really connecting to the issues, so.
I will just call out that Advocacy Day in Olympia is scheduled for January 30th, 2024. All right, sorry. Not only did I miss it, but now I stole you.
No, it's okay.
So-
It's good. So just one thing about that, they do want people to RSVP basically by December 1st, I believe. That's what they said at the meeting. And it's limited to 3 people per hospital, is what they said, because they're trying to keep it a little more manageable. I was thinking of going, but if you're interested in going, let me know. And if we have more than 3, then we can sort of talk about how to deal with that.
Is this just a day trip?
Yes.
It's, yes, right, there's a briefing starting at 8 a.m. on 30th, January 30th. And then the visits from 9 to 5. So, yeah. So anybody who's interested, just pass your name along to me and I'll sort of gather. I might be interested. Okay.
Yeah, the last advocacy they did was during a governance committee meeting, since I'm on their governance committee. And they had 140 people that were signed up to do advocacy there. So I think that's one reason why they're trying to get the advocacy through a lot of other facilities by only wanting to have 3 people from each facility. But I think it'd be really good to do the advocacy, since John and I did advocacy of Washington DC this year with our senators and representatives. That type of advocacy done here locally will be very good to help support the wonderful things that they can do to help our healthcare in this state.
Yeah, okay. So Bob, you expressed some interest. I might be going. Julie, is this the sort of thing you would go to as well?
You
or-
know, I could attend. Frankly, they'd much rather talk to clinicians, people like Dee Dee or nurses and governing board members and CEOs. So you thought that's too much.
Yeah,
Say 3 trustees, limiting or 3 people?
3 per hospital.
3 people, but
Okay.
I mean, if we have more than 3 who are interested, is there anybody else who'd like me to add you to the list?
I'm
Dee Dee?
interested, but
Erica?
I mean, I certainly don't want to bump anybody.
Well,
It's-
No, they love the commissioners.
all right. So we can talk about it. Right now, it's me, Bob, Dee Dee, and Erica, and we can just talk about what to do about that. So we'll figure it out.
The last thing I want to mention is that the foundation accepted a check from the Ellensburg Rodeo today for $14,950 for Tough Enough to Wear Heat. That's an incredibly important program that the foundation runs for us to make sure that people who need funds to help with breast care have the funds available when they need them. There's been a real uptick in the use of that program, largely because people delayed the care and was needed during the time. So appreciate the foundation and the rodeo making those funds available. And I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions for Julie before we move on to Amanda, which will be a lot separate time for Amanda? Any questions for Julie? Looks like the board has had enough of talking to CEOs.
I know.
All right, next up then we have HR, Amanda's report on pages 20 and 21. Amanda, anything you want to call our attention to?
Yes, just a couple of formatting things. So I did add the In addition, there's been on the employee population some questions in the past about how the numbers are categorized. We did add the per diem line so that you can see how many per diem staff we have as well. And this is an odd thing, but our numbers for our people for September and August literally are the exact, I checked that 4 times and we have the same amount of people, and I questioned my staff, but that's because this is based on people head count, not FTE count, which is usually more variable. Once I dove deeper into the data, there was a little bit of variable by FTE, but so that is correct. I just wanted to point that out. And then just Mandy already talked about Team Steps relaunching, and I had some information about there. I do want to thank her and Erin Marshall from Imaging, who are our first facilitators to relaunch the new program. And this is just a very busy time of year for HR between open enrollment, compensation planning, and just normal end of the year stuff. And we have the benefits fair on 11/6, and we're gonna have lots of vendors and raffles, and this year we're gonna have our gallery one, because we've been doing some art classes for our wellness committee too. So some fun new things, and you are all invited to attend if you'd like to do that. So that's it for mine.
Had a couple of
Yeah.
simple, maybe dumb questions, but the risk manager position, this is an in-person position, not or is it partly remote? Is it hybrid?
You want to talk
Fully
about
remote,
Oh, yeah.
fully remote.
Okay, that's. well, I
That's
guess
the position, I've been talking about her in my packet. Holly Ferrazzo is her name,
Right, yeah.
and she lives in Illinois, in the cornfield.
Incredible expertise and experience that she brings to us. She was able to come, she's been on site for Chartist training and some other things, so.
And visited
And
all
she
our.
knows how to find it. Calls, if she
Yeah.
has any updates.
Yeah, that's good.
And then Ashley Wild, so that's assisting Shannon.
Yes, yep, and she was an internal transfer as well, so she came from Ortho, I believe, and so she's doing great. And then the 12 internal transfers, I love to point that out too, because we just really believe in internal promotions and development, and so I really love to see those numbers too, so.
Yeah. I'm looking around the table at a lot of people who moved up in the organization, which is always good. Anyway, other questions for Amanda?
The evaluations that are noted as being overdue, what causes the overdueness? Is it just,
You know, a lot of things. One thing I will add is the amount of leaves in our organization, so employees on medical leave, maternity leave, that things like that. We typically have about 10% running about our employees on leave, and so that's reduced actually a little bit lately. But so when you factor that in, but it is something we're looking at, and we're looking at even with our coffee goals and some metrics to really focus on that this year. So thanks for bringing that up.
we're not able to withhold paychecks or anything until people show up?
No, no. You know,
Frowned upon.
that is feedback I heard recently from the managers. I just want to do it so well, and I feel like I don't want to rush it. And we say, well, hopefully it's not, we try to encourage it, say, hopefully it's not, the only time you have to have that conversation. You can always loop back and talk more, but we do want to encourage them, to get those in. So we are focusing on that a lot right now. Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just say, I send out reminders to folks, and an awful lot of those are per diem, so it's a matter of doing the evaluation and then connecting with per diem.
Other questions for Amanda? Thank you, Amanda. Next up, we have Ron Erlacher, pages 22 to 25. Ron?
Well, on the financial side, you got about 1.5 million left in contingency. There's been a little bit of movement since the last report, but it hasn't gone up too much.
How much contingency did we start with? Approximately.
Gosh, was it a little over 2 million, I believe?
Okay, it seems that 25 or 30% of contingency so far.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the project is still on schedule. We're doing good. Contractor's doing good. Next week, they'll be Thursday and Friday, they'll be pouring the slab out there. So Monday, they deliver the steel and they will start erecting the steel right away. So they're going to start on the west side of the building where the slab's already poured and work their way around, and that'll give this slab north side a chance to cure. And so So start to look like a building.
Is the water table any more issues going forward in construction?
It's been a pleasant surprise.
So I know that was the main unknown concern as to how that would play out at times.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
good
yeah.
that we've moved past that.
Yeah, so that was pretty easy to mitigate. And then I just put in the current challenges, so we're at that point of tying into the existing building, and walls are gonna come down, and they're gonna be tying into our system, so, and the med gas and the domestic water and the HVAC system, and so there's lots of risks that can happen there. And there's gonna be a lot of welding activity because the original structure is steel in that area, and the new structure is steel, so they've got to weld through it, so it's a mess there, so we're watching that. And there's just infection control risk when you're opening these walls up, so we've got mitigation plans to control the pressure, and we monitor that. On top of that, we do some particulate testing. So we got some baseline data, particulate in the air, and then we test it periodically through the construction to see how we're doing. So,
And it appears there's been a lot of coordination with the different teams to let them know how the space is going to be partially invaded and move things around and make adjustments to make everyone feel.
yeah, we meet Tuesday with stakeholders and go through it and plan out, when it's going to happen and what's going to happen first, what the infection control measures are going to look like, what systems are going to be impacted. And so I put that in there for an example. I don't want to go through everybody, just to give you a sense of what we plan out. So far, so good. I'm not even sure why I put that picture in there. So this, yeah, some pictures of the underground going in, that's all in now, and they're backfilling and compacting and getting ready for the pour next week. So that part of the work is all done.
And there's a new rule, no more digging holes, but it's all up from
One word. Yeah. So yeah, they're getting ready to do the electrical infrastructure. That's all the bracing in the new tunnel that they've got put in place to hold the walls up until they get that top slab poured. And then that all comes out. And then that's gotta be quarter turn, but that black piping there is an all new infrastructure. That's, yeah, thank you. That's going in, and there's some electrical infrastructure in the head in the tunnel. And that's one of the other tunnels. They're trying to weave some new electrical infrastructure, so there it's quite busy. Yep, so that's all the temporary walls that they pre-built that are now up in SOP and in the corridor on the dirty side of surgery. So that work's all done. So next week they'll be demoing those walls.
And this is our first time working with Walker Construction. How has the relationship been going?
Keeps getting better and better. It took a while to figure them out. But they are very detailed and always looking ahead. And yeah, they're looking through the plans and raising questions long before you get there, which is really kind of cool because those things can compound on you when you get stuck. Now you're stopping your critical path, and that's, so kudos to them for that.
And Ron, am I correct that it should be enclosed by mid-December at the latest?
Yeah.
So the
So-
roof should be on, the wall should be up.
Next week, they'll start putting the steel up, and the decking just kind of goes right behind it. They're trying to get that closed as quick as we can.
Approximately How many workers are on site in a given workday?
20.
Okay. They all stay pretty busy, it sounds like, keeping things moving.
Yeah, you got the excavators here and then you got people doing the underground work, the plumbers and the electricians and you got Walker Construction doing the temporary walls and all that they do.
And the subcontractors have been working out okay so far?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so
Okay, there's a little bit of context in there. Excellent, thank you.
Any other questions for Rod?
Like your pictures.
Thank you very much. Rod. Okay, next up, we move to operations. First, we have Dee Utley, Scano.
I have, my two-page report is on page 26 and 27, and as you can see by the length, my directors were really excited to share a lot of information with you, so I'm happy to definitely answer any questions. Just to call out some additional things that have happened. Our medical surgical floor, we just welcomed our first international nurse this week. So he's here in the county and being welcomed and onboarded. I haven't had the pleasure to meet him yet, but I know he spent some time with Jeff and with some HR staff. He's toured the facility and is really looking forward to hopefully setting down some roots. So he'll be working night shift on that search. He's from the Philippines and his last assignment was in Germany. Germany. So really excited to welcome him.
3 years?
Yes.
And then the goal is to bring him on as an
To
employee.
keep him. Yep. Yeah. So we welcome him. The emergency department, I just want to call out that we did have Patrick toured it, I think a good month or so ago. And we do have some plans with the architect of making our rooms, a couple of our rooms a little safer. We have a meeting next week with them. So I look forward to see what comes out of that meeting. Move forward with some work in the emergency department. Lastly, I just want to share, I did attend a WISHA CNO roundtable at the end of the WISHA state meeting and had a great day networking and really lots of great discussion. It was hospitals, of course, of all sizes. I met many of our local rural healthcare CNOs. Big talk was innovation, the new staffing bill, and just workforce development. So a lot of those same topics that we're hearing in other meetings. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
I have a question for you, and perhaps for Ron. The break room that will be under construction in the emergency department, is there a temporary space or how long will that one be?
They've actually been in a temporary space for a few months.
Okay, I thought I was.
Yeah, they're using the old gift shop.
The break room is repurposed as something else at this time. Is that-
Well, right now it's been closed for construction.
Yeah, they had to dig underneath that slab to extend the tunnel through it. So that
So the gift shop will still serve as break room until.
Yes.
it's
So
complete.
approximately January, and then we'll end up moving this third locker room into there.
Is the size will be similar when it's done?
Our break room?
Yes.
the-
Do you
yeah.
expect it to be much different?
Yeah, actually we are, but we are making some changes. So there's a doctor's office, the old sleep room, where the doctors used to be able to sleep at night. And we are taking that room over and extending a very small equipment closet next to it into that space. We're going to keep the bathroom that's back there and have that opened up into the staff break room. So there are 2 dressing rooms in there. We're going to lose 1 dressing room. And I don't know if you guys know this or not.
That's
but,
great.
Right now, they're only using 1 dressing room. So we're still going to have a dressing room for people to actually change into scrubs, but they will still have their existing break room and a bathroom.
Okay.
Cody and Dr.
And more
Schmelzer-
storage.
and Cody and Dr. Schmelzer are recognizing that we're going to be focused on the current expansion for a while, to find additional storage space and ways to really clean up the ED and create as much functionality back there in the short term as we can.
Okay, but we're thinking, you said January for the break room to be open for service again, is that what? Nice. Very good. And then one other question for you, out of county patients to the emergency department, am I guessing mostly Yakima or is it some Grant County or are we seeing from points beyond
We're
even?
definitely seeing at Yakima's a code increase, but we're also just seeing an increase in our volume. I think some of it is just the growth of our community, you know, coming out of the pandemic, but definitely that increase from
There's probably no reason to think that it's not going to keep increasing. Right.
Other questions for Dee? Thank you, Dee. Next up, we have ancillary services going in for Rhonda tonight is Nasser President, our very own pharmacy director. Nasser.
Thanks for having me. So the report starts on page 28, Rhonda prepared. I hope everybody had a chance to look over. In particular, I've been in communication with the managers from those departments, just trying to make sure have a continuation and support. And everybody's being very, very nice supporting those departments as Rhonda's not here, but it's all there if you have any questions. Something that happened in pharmacy recently is we finally filled our night shift position. The pharmacist started today. Not from the Philippines, just from the Wenatchee. We just took her away from Wenatchee, so very excited about that. So yes, one of the improvements there. If there's any questions, I'll be more.
Any questions for Nasser, and especially if you have any questions about pharmacy, now's the time.
Now's the time.
Right, now's the time.
I got lots of vaccines, all kinds of vaccines.
Okay, John, go ahead. You have a question about
So I don't know if you know why this is or not. The lab section, the chemistry analyzer to include new tests that will be available in 2025. Why is it so far in the future? Any idea what?
I don't. Yeah, I was gonna inquire on that because I thought it might be on 2024.
I wasn't sure, was it typo or if there really was some big lead
The
time?
tests will be available then, not the analyzer, is this right?
No, I think this is Katie said she's got a new analyzer coming in that was just FDA approved. So it takes a while to actually get it on site, and I think she's working on trying.
So the actual analyzer is new, not just the test that will be.
Correct.
Oh, I was reading that wrong, okay.
Katie's on if you have questions. Feel free to.
Right.
Hi, so we have, I'm discussing with Beckman the immunoassay analyzer that was just released that is going to be able to do blood virus. Those tests, because they've got a non-compete agreement with another company, will be available the beginning of 2025, but the analyzer will be available as soon as we reach an agreement.
Thank you.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, wow.
Katie, right. Right, Katie, great. Thank you, Katie.
And so since you are a pharmacy, are you able to keep it fully staffed? I mean, you have enough people out there that are willing to commit to KVH or are you?
With per diems.
Okay.
So yeah, our staff, operations are going just normal as it can be. We are utilizing quite a bit of per diems. It's been kind of difficult to, just like in other departments, to bring
Yeah.
staff to Ellensburg. We have to entice them.
And do you find that the community has looked favorable in the fact that we offer a 24-hour a day
Absolutely.
pharmacy?
Absolutely, that's one of the goals of the pharmacy right now. We really like patients getting discharged from ER, coming at 2 o'clock in the morning for antibiotic for their needs. Adults. As a matter of fact, we're getting some public from Yakima coming in because some of the providers now knows that we're open 24 hours. As a matter of fact, the Yakima Memorial Hospital has closed their night shift pharmacy.
Was there a sign that says go to KVH?
I'm hoping to put mine in there. And I did talk to their ER manager, says, hey, come to us.
I just want to thank Nasser for stepping up in Rhonda's unexpected absence. Rhonda does anticipate being back to work on Monday, but we want to lighten the load as much as we possibly can for her. And Nasser's done a fabulous job of supporting his colleagues. The direct reports to Rhonda and others in the organization. So it's been great.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Nasser?
Oh, just comment that this looks really ominous. Coming up with anticipated at April.
Yeah, I have mentioned before, Upper County is very, very dynamic right now. I think the election election. We understand that Fire District 7 did not renew its contract for a chief with KVFR. The election up there, both for city council and mayor in Coyellum, and also for Fire District 7, is going to be very consequential to Hospital District 2. Excited about it.
Any other questions about ancillary services? Yeah, we appreciate you coming to the meeting, so thank you. All right, next up, we have Stacy Aleo with the clinic operations. Stacy?
So my report starts on page 31. One thing I want to call attention to, good for the clinics, we recruited 2 of the hospital nurses. So bad for the hospitals, but very excited we were able to fill our nursing spot in neurology and rapid access. So with that change in nursing at rapid access, we are expanding more walk-in appointments and going just to 1 scheduled appointment per hour. So our goal is that nurse will triage those walk-ins and rapidly see them, set them up for the provider so the provider can do more.
As we add more services, do they, you get a bump up in salary?
No,
Look at them all. I mean,
Can I
you
talk
know,
to
it just.
you after? the
Yeah.
meeting?
Yeah, right. Workplace health, dermatology, rapid access, internal adult medicine, cardiology, neurology, family medicine, orthopedics, general and vascular surgery. I mean, half of these we didn't have, you know.
A couple of years ago.
Just think that's- I mean, it's impressive, but just to see it sort of listed like this. Pretty amazing. Other, any questions for Stacy? About her report?
I have a question about the orthopedic section.
Mhm.
Can you just expand upon Dr. Longo's change? Is he doing fewer surgeries and more in clinic, or what does that
He's
mean?
going to be, he's giving up his Thursday block. So he will be doing less surgeries to see more patients in clinic. So we're hoping it can balance out. He is pretty quick in the surgical suites and his volumes are still pretty good. And then we're working with the 1 PA to look at how we can try to get better efficiencies in that clinic overall, with only 2 providers on site.
So you're looking to fill the pipeline for
Yes.
first quarter.
Do you anticipate any confusion with the new Dr. Dawson coming on board?
I hope not.
People calling in and
We haven't seen that at this point. It was a little confusing even for us just to discuss it. Wait, Dr. Dawson's where?
when
No,
was this, or has Dr. Dawson started?
Dr. Dawson now has started.
Okay.
Any other questions for Stacy about the clinic operations?
For the site visit,
It was very amazing. It was really nice to connect with an organization. What they had done is they had 9 clinics spread out and they've condensed them all into 1 building. So all their specialties, all their family practice, they have about 26 family practice providers, variety of specialties. It was nice to see their communication center, their patient communication center handles their referrals, their scheduling, and all of their prescription refills. So they're running that out of their communication center. And then since they're all in 1 building now, they have 1 central desk on the main floor for check-in. So they have 9 different check-in desks, and they've eliminated that in the clinic space. So it was nice to speak with them, learn some tips, lessons learned, and some of the challenges. Their phone system is a higher technology than what ours is. And they said for them, dealing with their phone calls, it was being able to leave your number in a queue and get a call back was the game changer for them. So Jeff is working with our phone company to see.
Any questions about the dashboard or anything? We talked too much about that, but any question, anything you want to call our attention to on the dashboard? Hopefully we've had a chance to review.
I'll just add that the leave of absences are definitely impacting the clinic. We have quite a few providers go out. Some of them suddenly, some of them were planned, but we have scheduled a good portion of those patients. But that
has been a challenging task for this. And a huge thank you to the PSRs who make hundreds of phone calls to angry patients, canceling and scheduling. It is every time we have one of these, we just groan for those PSRs. It's really.
And I can speak that I know there, at least one of them's coming in on the weekends to make calls
Yeah.
too, so. A big sacrifice, get this problem solved, so yeah, thank you.
Other questions for Stacy? Thank you, Stacy. All right, we move on to the medical staff. I see we have Dr. Hoppy on the line there, Chief of Staff. And on page 34, the people for initial and reappointments. Hopefully you guys have all had a chance to review those online. Dr. Hoppy? Did you want to?
Good evening. First off, I want to just mention that the Chartis meeting was a success. We sponsored this earlier this meeting on October 5th and 6th. And overall, I think it was well received by attendees. On Friday, we had 33 people participating, and on Saturday, 35. Overall, the feedback was positive and good, and I think the providers and everyone attended actually took something really vital away from the conference. So I want to thank everyone for that opportunity. The Medical Executive Committee is now moving forward. We're working on kind of revising the bylaws for our organization. As you know, they're kind of antiquated, outdated, and this is going to take several months to do, and we're just taking small chunks at a time, dissecting the bylaws and rewriting them. And we're, again, Chartis is advising us and helping us rewrite those guidelines and the bylaws. So I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions. My report's on page 34, and you have it in front of you. We had 9 initial credentialing appointments, and then I think there were 7 candidates that were up for reappointments, and those are the files that we reviewed at MEC last week.
And everybody's had a chance to review those, I take it?
Yes.
All right, so are there any questions before we entertain a motion? All right, we have a motion to approve the list of initial and reappointments.
I'll move.
Okay, motion from Terry, second from Erica. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please, of these initial and appointments and reappointments listed on page 34, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much, Dr. Hoppy. Anything else before we move on?
Nope, I'll keep you posted as we move forward with the bylaws.
Thank you very much for doing all that work. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Martin, who I assume looks like he's not here. So I'm not sure if anybody can answer any questions that people had about this, but hopefully you've had a chance to review his report. If you do have any questions, just email him. Unless there are any pressing questions that you think someone here can answer.
I would just mention that we've had some recent success in hiring both physicians and APCs for some key spots. And I think a lot of it has to do about the enthusiasm that we're hearing about our new care model in the clinics. It feels creative to people, and it feels like maybe it makes that primary care spot a little more sustainable. So some early success in just talking about that and introducing particularly physicians to the idea that they get to build an entire team to support them.
Well, you're a choice. Right?
There you go.
Yeah. If there's nothing else about Dr. Martin's report, we'll move on. Anything else? Okay. Next up, we have our CFO, Jason Adler. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So just wanted to talk about the stats on page 39 and go through some of the significant events there that we've seen this year and continuing this month. So the inpatient admissions continue to be lower. And that is mostly driven from lower deliveries. And then also we're just seeing an increased number of patients admitted as observation status rather than inpatients. status. So with the reduction of deliveries and then the increase in equivalent OBS, the hospital has been running about what we have in prior years. Average length of stay is 4.2. Earlier in the year, January through April, we were quite a bit higher than 4. And for critical access hospital status, it's important to be below 4. And we are below 4 for the months that we need to be, which was May through the end of the year. We're running about 3.8 days. So we're okay there, but monitoring it closely. And the other stat I like to call out is just the total clinic visits. As Stacy mentioned, they've had some provider absences expected and planned, and that contributed to a 14% below budget there on the provider clinic visits in the month of September. And then to jump over to the financial statements to about what that means for dollars, like for the blank pages. Page 42, so we can see that inpatient revenue is well below budget, like the admissions were, but it's offset by the outpatient revenue. And we did end up just slightly below budget this month by $208,000 in revenue. Attribute most of that to that 15% below budget clinic visits. Contractuals, we did well this month because we did recognize some funds that come from the Medicare cost report settlement and adjusting for our 2023 interim rates from Medicare. And on expenses, a few to call out is salaries continue to be below budget, but that is offset by our professional fees where we are purchasing locum tenens, and we also have some strategic partners in there, which is our OBHG and Evergreen anesthesia services that were not planned or budgeted in 2023, but will be going forward. And then purchase services, you'll notice well over budget there. And that is, again, due to a catch up in invoicing, mostly from Cerner. We had something occur in the systems where Cerner began sending us invoices electronically. We didn't know that. We didn't know where to go pick them up. We've had it received them electronically before, so we did miss some invoices for a period. So we should be all caught up there. And then we also completed paying for our PAC system that's been implemented in May. So we ended up over budget by $448,000 related to those purchase services and professional fees mostly. Ended the month with a small positive margin, $204,000, and a net income adding in our investment for $408,000. Any questions on the financial statements?
Questions about the financial statement?
Okay. And then I do have an ask for capital on page 49. We're doing some maintenance work in the labor and delivery to give a refresh to the floors, the walls, the ceiling tiles in each of the labor and delivery rooms, the nursery, and the C-section suite. And along with this, we would like to bring in medical air to each of those rooms. So the cost of just the medical air is $140,000, $140,247 to bring that in. And then the rest of the project is about $180,000, which is all maintenance work and would be expensed. So we're just on the request approval from the board on that.
Anything, yeah, Bob or John, anything to add to this? Since I assume you discussed it at finance.
Yeah, it came in pretty late, so Jason and I talked about it a day or so ago. And it clearly is something we need, and it's gonna make, I think, lower some stress levels when they are trying to change out tanks in critical situations. So yeah, you would, yeah, it is a little surprising here. So I certainly support it.
I would just say we've been looking for a project in family birthplace that would give us the opportunity to do we know we had to do it.
All right.
I've had the firsthand experience too. I'm excited for this project. When my daughter was born, we had all hands on deck in the hospital in the rooms, and I think there was about 12 people at any one time caring for my daughter, and they were having to change out the tanks during that time where she was receiving that care. So everyone.
Would you
worked out
consider that
great,
a stressful
and
moment during that tank change?
I tell you, when they start changing the tanks, it's like, whoa,
Counting tanks, realizing you.
we're swapping tanks out right now. You guys are out, yeah, so it's really amusing to see this come and.
All right, so not only support, but a personal.
Yeah.
Okay, so John or Bob, you want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Motion from Bob,
I'll second.
second from John. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the capital expenditure request for infant resuscitation plumbing for medical air, please say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? Anything else for us, Jason?
That's all I had. Thank you.
Settling in well?
Yep,
Good to
I
hear.
think so. That's done most of my stuff.
Yeah, he went hunting,
Yeah.
took the job and left. You get me.
I did.
All right, well, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
All right, next up then, we have Michelle Worrell with our community relations report. Michelle?
Hey, everybody. Just one thing to add to my report. I spent the day today in Wenatchee with representatives from the Department of Transportation, Kittitas, Chelan, and Douglas and Grant County talking about the I-90 Vantage Bridge rebuild. If you haven't heard about it, you will hear about it very soon. They will be opening bids on that project November 8th as far as to select a contractor, and construction will begin this spring, 2024. It will be a 4-year project, reducing traffic down to 2 lanes on that bridge with some pretty significant impacts. So the good news is that all of our first responders, including KVFR, were at the table from Kittitas County. And so it's great that we're starting these conversations. It's going to have some real significant impacts on Vantage Highway. They're talking about closing that actually quite often to prevent some backups up around Hunsinger. It'll back up through any of the back roads, Yakima, 26, Vernita, you name it. There's going to be backups. And so as an organization, I want to start talking to just our leadership to make sure we know staff that are impacted, that we're on the same page with KVFR, KitCom, everything, because there will be some pretty major incidents over the next 4 years. Other than that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
So Mitchell Rhodes, he's going to keep writing grants.
Absolutely.
Okay. That's good, because he seems to be doing a lot of work.
Requirement of the.
Okay, all right,
You
that's
can't
good
be
to
a grant
hear.
writer and not write grants, so.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Absolutely. We're really, Mitchell has, Julie actually knows his degree better than I do. But along with his skills in grant writing, he has a passion for community health and outreach. And so tying that in with the grant work that he's already doing, and just really getting him more connected is the goal on this transition, but absolutely continuing with the grants.
All right.
You're gonna keep him more motivated too with the peers and marketing that he'll be working with, since that is a passion of his. Yeah.
And do you have a location for the second annual appreciation banquet yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's at CWU at the Cirque.
Perfect, thank you.
Anything else for Michelle? All right, thank you very much, Michelle. Anything else before we move on to education board reports? So just a couple of things regarding education. The WISHA annual meeting was held earlier this week. Terry and I attended. There were a few sessions that I'll sort of comment on. One was on kind of DEI diversity, equity, and inclusion, sort of medical racism stuff. It was a really, I thought, an excellent presentation, and I got the PowerPoint from the guy, and I have some notes that I'll be happy to share with people. I think it can really inform our DEI work. There was a session on communication, which may be of interest to Michelle, which I took some notes on. And then we also had a presentation on sort of artificial intelligence and where it might take the industry, which kind of gives a broad overview of that, which may interest some of you. But I found those 3 sessions especially very valuable. I also got to network a little bit too, got to talk to a really amazing chief nursing officer at the very end. Terry, you have anything to add?
No, I agree with him about those 3 things. The thing about race was really interesting. And then the thing about AI is really interesting. But consequently, there's a real big push that we're going to see a lot of AI out here. And one of the things he said is a thing that's been doing AI a lot of times with people, which I thought was really interesting. He said an ATM machine is actually functioning with AI, but I never really thought an ATM machine was really making its own thoughts inside about it. But consequently, we're going to see a lot of AI going on. And one of the things they also talked about is that that'll probably be something that the governance board that we will have to talk about, whether we're going to increase this AI or that AI, depending upon what it's used for.
Yeah, one of the reasons he brought that up was everybody thought that when we started to have ATMs that a lot of tellers would just be out of a job. And it is true that a lot of tellers were put out of work, but they were actually shifted to other kinds of customer-facing services, and we're able then to offer services in more rural areas and things. So actually the employment in the banking industry went up after ATMs went in place. The reason he talked about that, one of the reasons was that if AI is doing a lot of the charting stuff and a lot of the sort of other kind of drudgery that providers have to do in their day, if that's taken care of, then it will actually give more time for kind of patient-facing work from providers. And so it wouldn't necessarily, mean we need less providers. What it would mean is we need more providers to provide more care to people, would actually facilitate that. So that's one of the kind of good things that might come of it. So he was making the comparison there, that it's not necessarily a threat, but actually will provide opportunities for more patient-facing care. Yeah, so I have some notes from there. If anyone's interested, I'll send it out. If you're not interested, you don't have to open it. All right. The other thing we did talk earlier about Wisha Hospital Advocacy Day, and I took down the names, Bob, Erica, Dee Dee, and I might be interested in that. So we'll talk about that later. I think those are the 2 main things on education and board reports. You don't have any old business? New business. We have a couple of things that we need to take care of. As this is our last regular meeting of the year, we need to elect board officers for 2024. I'm told by Erica that she'd like to nominate a slate of officers. Is that right, Erica?
It is, yeah. Can I start on that?
Go ahead.
So over the past year, I've had conversations with commissioners and they know what their interests are, what they excel at, that sort of thing. And my belief is that a good fit that I would like to put forth, nominate a slate for 2024 is keep Matt in the president position, John to vice president, and Terry to secretary. Secretary, I just wanted to point out. I know you love a pun, Terry. Secretary. So I'd like to move. Do I move my own nomination or someone else?
You nominate, and then we would second the nomination.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
it's a
right.
nomination.
Nominations.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Very good.
Okay, so we have nomination from Erica, and the nomination has been seconded by Bob. Is there any discussion of this before we take a vote? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving that slate of electors, me as president, John as vice president, Terry as secretary for 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Congrats, everyone.
And I look forward to serving in the president position for another year. I'm excited to do that, and I really appreciate the confidence of my fellow board members and letting me do that for another year.
Wait, you're saying that goes together?
I'm assuming. Okay, thank you very much. So we also have a list of committees. The committee members that we have in place for 2023. My opinion here, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but that we're fairly happy with the committees we are now assigned to for 2023, and we'd like to continue that for 2024. Am I correct? Is there anybody who would like to sort of correct me on that? If not, we can move forward with this assignment for 2024 as well. Is there anybody who has any concerns about this? Or if not, is there anyone who would like to make a motion?
I have no concern. Anybody else want to speak? Someone, I would move.
Second.
All right. Any discussion before we take a vote?
I was always wondering whether we should have some more standard board committee assignments in the organization. Because we talk a lot about like workplace violence. Should one of those committees be something that we have one of the a board member attend to or anything else? And maybe we could just think about that and we could always add it to next year. I was just thinking that maybe there might be another committee that might be that the board should be a little more associated with. Because like, you know, the finance committee, we have John and Bob in there together. Maybe there should be a couple people if we decide to have the workplace violence committee meeting. They have a couple of people from the board on that or something like that. So
Possibly, yeah, that's something we could talk about as a board. I think the idea now is that the workplace violence stuff would be reported to AQI Council. And we would review it at that level, but certainly we can have that discussion, Terry.
yeah, so anyway, I just was just thinking that if there's any other committees, and the next time I have a meeting with the Washington State Hospital Association, the governance board, I was going to have somebody discuss the committees that the board members are associated with, and then I could bring that discussion back to the board. So consequently, we'll know what other hospitals have their board associated with. So that way we will be able to have a good governance on this at this hospital.
Okay.
So anyway, I'll keep my mouth shut.
No, it's good. I appreciate the suggestion, Terry, and I think that's something we can certainly consider as we move forward, is to think about whether we want to add any committee assignments.
Okay.
Okay, so that's something we should take up maybe as a board when we do our board evaluation, which I mentioned briefly in a minute. But until then, any further discussion? I think we've had a motion. We've had motions.
Motion.
Yes. Okay. So any further discussion about the committee assignments? Okay, all those in favor of repeating the 2023 committee assignments to 2024, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. And for another year, this will be my 9th year, I think I'm as chair of QI Council. No one has realized that QI Council is the best committee at the hospital, and I once again get to stay on it.
Well, the thing with it is that having quality is a really big foundation of a good healthcare thing. And I really enjoy being on that committee too.
Yeah.
Because consequently, safety and quality is the thing that keeps a hospital from collapsing. So that's really important. So I'm so happy to be able to be on that committee again too.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Board calendar is here just for your information. If you notice, yeah, go ahead.
No, you're maybe gonna say what I was gonna ask.
Probably not, go ahead.
Well, I was just noticing that Chelan and a regular board meeting are the same day. Is that, are we holding our, will it be a special board meeting in Chelan, or do we need to reschedule our board meeting in June?
My guess, and Mandy, you can correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is that the Chelan dates are probably not right. So we probably have to change those because they usually have it earlier in the week.
It's posted on their website as those dates, but it may change.
All right.
I just really don't want to.
Well,
We'll figure, yeah, we'll figure.
They always have a governance committee meeting up in Chelan. But I haven't received a date for that yet either, so I'm not exactly sure when that's gonna be. But I think you're correct that it's probably going to be something that we'll be able to move around.
Well, Mandy, if you wouldn't mind maybe just confirming with them, because, I mean, for as long as we've been going, it's always been, yeah, earlier in the week.
Yeah, right, Sunday through.
So I
Yeah, this
think,
is,
yeah, my guess would be that there's something up there, right? But not Mandy's mistake. Their
Maybe.
mistake.
I would suggest that it was maybe a mistake.
I don't think so.
Andy, were you involved in creating this chart?
Yes.
The board, on,
No, go ahead.
the board finance for May is listed as 3 PM. I'm assuming that's a typo.
Yes.
Every other one is at 7:30 AM.
What if that one was changed and I just didn't catch it when I revised it?
Oh, that's good. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
So if you notice any mistakes or anything that you want to call attention to, we can nail that down.
But potentially we might be looking for an alternate date then for June. If that is indeed Chelan's.
Yeah, maybe.
So just
Yeah.
possibly keep that one in mind.
Yeah, we can check. Once we hear back from Mandy and from Wisha about what's going on, then we can sort of cross that bridge.
That's fair.
We're going to do an annual CEO evaluation, which I think is why Julie really ran out of here. And that's, as in the past, that'll be headed up by the president, vice president, so Terry and I will confer. It'll look a lot like past CEO evaluations. And Amanda, I'll be working with you to talk about some things. But the instruments will probably look a lot very similar to the one that I put together the last time I was president. But everybody in the senior leadership team will get a copy of an evaluation to turn in. You will be asked to submit it. It will be kept confidential and you will not have to put your name on it. Mandy will collect these and just keep track of I think keep track of who's turned them in, but not which is which kind of thing. And then what we'll do, which is what we've done in the past, is I'll set up a meeting with you guys so that we can talk through my summary of what I got from those. And you can give me feedback if there's anything that needs to be sort of tweaked. But everything is completely confidential and no one will know. So the reason we do a summary is she doesn't see the raw evaluations. What she'll see is a summary that I put together with no names attached. And it's just, and then we have the meeting, which is also completely confidential. Obviously, she's not there, where you guys can give me feedback to make sure that I capture your sentiments properly. And that's always valuable. So anyway, keep an eye out your email for that notification. Terry, you and I can sit down sometime and instruments you're using, but also I'll run everything by the board before we actually set them up. So the full board will have a chance to
Sure,
review
well,
this.
we can stand up or sit down.
Yeah, we can do either one. The other thing that I'll just mention, it's not here, but we have typically done a board evaluation toward the end of the year. But I think the idea is that we'll do that early next year. So we'll do it in January of next year, just because we have the QAPI plan being revised, we have the CEO evaluation, stuff like that. So we'll do a board evaluation, but we'll do it early next year, unless anyone has any objections to that.
We still see input from outside the board for our evaluation.
We can, yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, we like to let you guys take it, have the chance to take shots at it.
But I don't think that.
Right. Anyway, so yes, we'll do that, and I think we can solicit opinions from outside. Anything else for the good of the order before I talk about executive session? So we're gonna go into executive session now to talk about real estate and personnel. Now, that's allowed under RCW 42.30.110 B and G. There is action anticipated when we return. So, but there will be no action taken during the executive session. As I understand it, Amanda and Jason are gonna stick around. Is there anyone else who has to stick around? Okay.
Gets to, last.
Yes, all right. How long do you think we need? 20 minutes?
So efficient.
All right, so let's take a 6-minute break here until 7:20 and then begin the 20 minutes then. Let's budget a little, let's say 7:45, we'll return. So we're gonna take a brief break, and then we'll have 25 minutes to talk in executive session. We'll reconvene then public session at 7:45 when, as I said, action is anticipated. Anything else? All right, thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
And
Thank you,
see
everybody.
some of you in a bit. Thanks again, Nancy. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.